I mean, I think that's fair to say. Really, you're not forgetting, I don't know, anyone, say an ideologically consistent 12-term congressman who came within less than 200 votes of winning a straw poll. Isn't anyone going to give that gentleman a little love?
There's a top tier now of Bachman and Perry and Romney, and, we haven't mentioned, and we should.
Thank you.
We haven't mentioned, and we should, Rick Santorum, who did really surprisingly well for the amount of money and resources he had.
Rick Santorum? He didn't get half of what Ron Paul got. He lost to the guy who lost so bad he dropped out of the race. Santorum?
We're looking at Mitt Romney, who continues to be the front runner, but we have Rick Perry as well, and now Michelle Bachmann. Let's not count out John Huntsman, though.
What? John Huntsman? Huntsman got 69 votes. If all of John Huntsman's supporters met at the same Ames, Iowa Quiznos, the fire marshal would say, yeah, that's fine, no problem. There's still some tables open in the back. Huntsman was the only Mormon running in the straw poll, and he came in second amongst Mormons. And by the way, this pretending Ron Paul doesn't exist for some reason has been going on for weeks.
A new Gallup survey showing Rick Perry running second to Mitt Romney, knocking down Iowa favorite Michelle Bachmann to fourth.
Behind who? Fourth behind who? How did Libertarian Ron Paul become the 13th floor in a hotel? What's wrong with he is Tea Party patient zero. All that small government grassroots business, he planted that grass. These other folks, they're just moral majorities in a tri-cornered hat. Ron Paul's the real deal. And Fox News should love this guy. But watch the disconnect between the debate moderators at Fox's Thursday debate and the debate audience.
Iran does not have an air force that can come here, just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they had nuclear weapons, and we had to go in. I'm sure you supported that war as well. Okay. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars.
What's with the smirk and the eye roll? The crowd goes nuts when you do what it is. There goes crazy Uncle Ron. Babbling about the unsustainability of multiple wars. He's the one guy in the field, agree with him or don't agree with him, who doesn't go out of his way to regurgitate talking points or change what he believes to fit the audience he's in front of. And you're treating him like if this were Celebrity Apprentice, he'd be this guy. By the way.
God, guys. Just listen to that. I mean, they're not even mentioning candidates we actually want. And if you're listening to this radio station here, Thrice Daily Download on Freedomizer Radio, Freedomizer Radio, most of our listeners out there, Ron Paul would be one of our choices.
John Stewart did a fantastic
this is actually,
story on The Daily Show.
Sorry with the audio being crazy tonight, guys. Problem uploading these clips, so doing it kind of freehand. But this is actually the Young Turks. If you haven't heard of the Young Turks, they're a pretty decent news source for alternative news. They do get a little kind of comedy, but it's more opinions, kind of like me. I don't know how funny I am, but these people, they've actually, some jokes are fun. There's some opinions I don't agree on, but that's just the way the world works, But I've got to say, as far as news source, the Young Turks on YouTube, look them up, just like Vice News. Vice News, if you haven't heard about it, it's the news that is you or your news or you are the news. I mean, I forget what the term is, but they really include that it's people who get to work out in the field, who are out in the field, submit to Vice, and Vice picks up their videos and puts it live on their stuff or, puts it on their page. But YouTube, Vice, and Young Turks, those are two good sources. This is a Young Turk article talking about an angry right-wingist at Jon Stewart when Jon Stewart's talking about, you'll hear about it here, folks.
fantastic story on The Daily Show about Israel and Gaza, and two parts that he mentioned were really great. In fact, he showed a video that I had not seen yet where Israel warns about bombings that they're going to do in a house by bombing the house first. Now, look, it's a small bomb, but it's an obvious punchline, right? I mean, hey, we're going to bomb your house. How are we going to let you know? By dropping a bomb on it, right? Now, you see the bomb going off if you watch The Daily Show, which we can't show on YouTube. And you see that it doesn't do a lot of damage, and then that's a warning, and then afterwards the house gets obliterated. And he also says they have to evacuate, and this is a very serious issue, but he's going to joke around about it. You're going to hear it on Mark Levine's show in a second, but they really have nowhere to go. I mean, I've read article after article where they're given 3 minutes, they got to get out of the house, grab whatever earthly possessions they have, because everything else is about to be destroyed, and it's the middle of the night, and where do I go? I don't know. You know, Gaza Strip is small, but beyond that, where do you go? I mean, do people have a backup plan for if their house is obliterated in the middle of the night and you have 3 minutes to decide where to take your kids? So it's a serious issue, but as always, Jon Stewart did a brilliant job of making light of it in a way that led you to see what the real truth of the matter is while being able to, you know, unbelievably chuckle over it, right? Because it's so absurd, and that's what he's good at, pointing out the absurd. Now, Mark Levine, well, he doesn't see the irony of absurdity. He is absurdity. He lives absurdity. So, of course, he was livid over this situation. If you don't know who Mark Levine is, join the rest of America. He happens to be a conservative talk show host, and he's very angry about everything, and certainly about this situation. So he decided that he's going to go to war against Jon Stewart. It's going to get personal. Let's start watching and listening.
So this is Jon Stewart last night. Go.
How are the Gazans notified?
Basically, a small mortar explosion on the roof of a building, which serves as an Israeli warning of an upcoming airstrike.
Let's stop there a second, please. So the Israelis are warning their own people of incoming missiles from Hamas and Islamic Jihad, among others. And the Israelis are trying to warn the Palestinians in Gaza of a coming attack as well. So the Hamas terrorists aren't warning anybody about anything. In fact, they're insisting that the people in the Gaza Strip serve as human shields. And somehow this basic human fact, this simple logic, is lost on John Leibowitz. I mean Stewart. And I don't trust Jews who change their names. What do you think about that, too? There, I said it.
Wow. He's been holding that one down for a little while. Right?
Yeah, folks, you can hear.
Okay, well,
I
think you're a weirdo. One of my best friends growing up.
It's just ridiculous how, you know, people just constantly on these. I mean, it's not just right-wingists. You got, you know, left as well, and they just so radical. And this old way of thinking that we have to be radically dedicated to something that doesn't make sense. You know, it blows my mind. It's just like secular religion. Taking something like Christ and interpreting it and saying that, oh, I like his interpretation. It's like, no, it's supposed to be your interpretation. You're not supposed to have some category or some, you know, opinion that you follow off of. So anyways, I'm going to skip on here. We're kind of getting late into the hour. We're actually going over the 90-minute slot here. And let's see, I'm going to pull up some other things. Alright, well that's enough for Jon Stewart. What I'm going to do forward to Russell Brand, since we're already running a little over time, just to speed this along. So I got some Russell Brand clips here between basically Russell Brand and the media going back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and just play these here in a second. So if you don't know who Russell Brand is, the infamous Katy Perry ex-husband. He also was a drug addict. He'll admit that. You know, he's not in as a title of pride, but he'll admit that in the sense of it was a challenge that he had to go through, and it was a part of his culture and his adversity that he went through. So, really cool guy, I think, personally. I don't know him, so I mean, I can't say personally in the sense of who he really is, but, you know, as far as what I've seen, he really is just using his fame at the moment because he's known, so he is famous, and he's using it to really get out the agenda of freedom and destroying the system. And he is speaking revolution. And it's pretty cool here, folks. I mean, you got to listen to some of these clips and just hear who this guy is. If you haven't heard him, Russell Brand, here's some stuff that he does, or he's got.
I suppose like a person who's been politely asked by an attractive woman. I don't know what the typical criteria is. I don't know many people that edit political magazines. Boris, he used to do one, didn't he? So I'm a person with crazy hair, quite a good sense of humour. Don't know much about politics. I'm ideal.
But is it true you don't even vote?
Yeah, no, I don't vote.
Well, how do you have any authority to talk about politics then?
Well, I don't get my authority from this pre-existing paradigm, which is quite narrow and only serves a few people. I look elsewhere for alternatives that might be of service to humanity. Alternate means alternate political systems.
They being?
Well, I've not invented it yet, Jeremy. I had to do a magazine last week. I've had a lot on my plate. But I say, but here's the thing it shouldn't do. Shouldn't destroy the planet. Shouldn't create massive economic disparity. Shouldn't ignore the needs of the people. The burden of proof is on the people with the power, not people like doing a magazine.
How do you imagine the people get power?
Well, I imagine there are sort of hierarchical systems that have been preserved through
they
generations.
Get power by being voted in.
Well,
That's
how
they
Jeremy,
get it. You can't even be asked to vote.
It's quite a narrow prescriptive parameter that changes within the.
In a democracy, that's how it works.
Well, I don't think it's working well, Jeremy, being destroyed. Given that there is economic disparity to a huge degree.
Sorry, folks.
What are you saying? There's no alternative. There's no alternative.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you
Brilliant.
can't be asked to vote, why should we be asked to listen to your political point of view?
You don't have to listen to my political point of view, but it's not that I'm not voting out of apathy. I'm not voting out of absolute indifference and weariness and exhaustion from the lies, treachery, deceit of the political class that has been going on for generations now, and which has now reached fever pitch where we have a disenfranchised, disillusioned, despondent underclass that are not being represented by that political system. So voting for it is tacit complicity with that system, and that's not something I'm offering up.
Listen to go to saying, guys.
I'm trying to.
Well, why don't you start by voting?
I don't think it works. People have voted already, and that's what's created the current paradigm.
When did you last vote?
Never.
You've never, ever voted?
No. Do you think that's really bad?
So you struck an attitude, what, before the age of 18?
Well, I was busy being a drug addict at that point because I come from the kind of social conditions that are exacerbated by an indifferent system that really just administrates for large corporations and ignores the population that it was voted in to serve.
You're blaming the political class for the fact that you had a drug problem?
No. I'm saying I was part of a social and economic class that is underserved by the current political system, and drug addiction is one of the problems it creates when you have huge, underserved, impoverished populations. People get drug problems and also don't feel like they want to engage with the current political system because they see that it doesn't work for them. They see that it makes no difference. They see that they're not served. I say that the apathy... Jeremy, my darling, I'm not saying that the apathy doesn't come from us, the people. The apathy comes from the politicians. They are apathetic to our needs. They're only interested in servicing the needs of corporations. Look at what... Ain't the Tories going to court and taking the EU to court because they're trying to curtail bank bonuses? Is that what's happening at the moment in our country? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
So why am I going to tune in for that?
You don't believe in democracy. You want a revolution, don't you?
The planet is being destroyed. We are creating an underclass. We are exploiting poor people all over the world. And the genuine, legitimate problems of the people are not being addressed by our political class.
All of those things may be true.
They are true.
But you took... I wouldn't argue with you about many of them.
Well, how come I feel so cross with you? It can't just be because of that beard. It's gorgeous.
It's possibly...
And if the Daily Mail don't want it, I do. I'm against them. Grow it longer. Tangle it into your armpit hair.
You are a very trivial man.
What do you think? I am trivial?
Yes.
A minute ago, you were having a go at me because I want a revolution.
I'm not having a go at you because you want a revolution. Many people want a revolution, but I'm asking you what it would be like.
Well, I think what it won't be like is a huge disparity between rich and poor, where 300 Americans have the same amount of wealth as the 85 million poorest Americans, where there is an exploited and underserved underclass that are being continually ignored, where welfare is slashed while Cameron and Osborne go to court to defend the rights of bankers to continue receiving their bonuses. That's all I'm saying.
What's the scheme? That's all I'm asking. What's the scheme? You talk vaguely about revolution. What is it?
I think a socialist egalitarian system based on the massive redistribution of wealth, heavy taxation of corporations, and massive responsibility for energy companies and any companies that exploit the environment. I think they should be the concept of profit. Yes,
there needs to be a government.
Well,